Holy shit. Football fans, Cleveland is not okay right now. An internal quarterback rebellion is brewing behind the scenes, and it's being led by someone nobody expected, acting head coach Tommy Rees. While Kevin Stefanski clings to a sinking ship, Reese is making a bold move that could completely flip the franchise upside down, and it centers around Shedeur Sanders. The media isn't telling you the full story, but we will. Let's break it down. When Tommy Rees was named acting head coach of the Cleveland Browns, nobody expected fireworks. In fact, most people assumed he'd just keep the seat warm, run a few bland pressers, and quietly ride out the storm until Kevin Stefanski returned. But from the moment Rees stepped into power, everything changed. He didn't walk into the situation thinking like a placeholder, he walked in like a man with a mission. And the move he made next, it shattered every assumption about his leadership and possibly about the entire future of this team. Rees took one look at the Browns' stagnant offense, the lifeless play calling, the constant struggles under center, the lack of energy, and decided he wasn't going to play it safe. He wasn't going to blindly follow an old blueprint that had already proven useless. He wanted something different, something better. And tucked away on the roster, hidden behind layers of politics and coaching denial, he found the answer he was looking for: Shedeur Sanders. Now, here's where it gets crazy. Rees didn't just start giving Sanders a few extra snaps in practice to test the waters. He didn't drop vague hints in interviews or throw out non-committal sound bites like, "We're evaluating everyone." Nope, he went all in, quickly, quietly, and completely. Before going further, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. It really helps us keep bringing you the content you love. On day one, Rees started treating Sanders like the quarterback he'd build a franchise around, not just a hopeful rookie or a backup waiting his turn. Inside the Browns facility, Rees began crafting something bold, a quarterback-centric offense tailored to Sanders' strengths. Not Stfansky's old-school system. Not the watered-down playbook Dylan Gabriel was failing to run, but something new. Aggressive, fast, unpredictable. And the message became clear. This wasn't about auditioning Sanders, this was about unlocking him. Insiders say players noticed the shift instantly. Practices got sharper. The energy changed. There was a different edge during drills. And through it all, Rees made one thing unmistakably obvious. He wasn't afraid to upset the existing power structure if it meant winning. That includes challenging Kevin Stefanski's QB decisions, shaking up the locker room hierarchy, and yes, flipping the Browns' future on its head. But why would Rees risk so much his reputation, his relationship with Stfansky, and possibly his job, all for a sophomore quarterback who hasn't taken a regular season NFL snap? Simple. Because he sees something nobody else does. This isn't just a move, it's a statement. And as we peel back the layers and reveal what Shedeur Sanders has really been doing behind closed doors, you'll understand exactly why Rees bet the house on him and why it might be the smartest thing anyone in Cleveland has done this season. While the cameras were focused on the drama between coaches and analysts, kept recycling the same tired narratives, something entirely different was happening behind the scenes. Shedeur Sanders, the quarterback buried on the depth chart, barely acknowledged in press conferences, was quietly becoming the most prepared player in the entire building. This wasn't some PR stunt either. This wasn't social media flash or post-game quotes designed to win sympathy. It was unseen, unpromoted, but it was real. Sanders was working like a man with something to prove, because he did. Every morning, teammates noticed he was the first one in. Every night, hours after most players had gone home, his car was still in the facility parking lot. He wasn't just killing time, he was pulling apart film like a surgeon, dissecting defenses, studying tendencies, learning every page of the playbook until he could run it in his sleep. And the effort? It wasn't showy, it wasn't loud. There were no press leaks or agents tweeting buzzwords about grinding. Shedeur didn't say a word about it. He just clocked in and clocked out and did everything Stfansky refused to give him credit for. But the more he worked, the more people started to notice, especially Tommy Rees. According to multiple sources inside the Browns facility, Rees was blown away by what he saw. Sanders wasn't just memorizing plays, he was absorbing concepts that veterans still struggle with. He was reading defensive rotations, anticipating safety shifts, and breaking down coverage schemes like a veteran film junkie. Even more impressive, he was leading interaction sessions with receivers after practice, running extra routes, building chemistry, fine-tuning timing. Not because anyone told him to, because he wanted to. Because he knew that if his opportunity ever came, he wouldn't get a second chance to prove why it should have come sooner. Reese watched all of this unfold from a front row seat and quickly realized this wasn't your typical backup doing just enough to stay ready. This was a franchise quarterback in waiting disguised as a clipboard holder. A player who was preparing not just to play, but to take over. And maybe most importantly, Sanders wasn't bitter about being overlooked. He wasn't venting on social media or taking jabs in interviews. He kept his head down, he let his work speak. And when the moment finally started creeping closer, when Tommy Rees made the quiet decision to start shifting reps and spotlight toward him, Sanders didn't flinch. He just nodded like he'd been ready all along. From the outside, it looked like a sudden coaching shakeup gave a young player a shot. But inside the building, everyone knew the truth. Shedeur Sanders had already earned it. And what Reese said next in his first ever press conference, that's when the gloves really came off. Tommy Rees could have played it safe in his first press conference as acting head coach. He could have repeated the usual cliches. We're taking it one practice at a time. Everyone's competing. We trust the process. And really, no one would have blamed him. Most interim coaches say as little as possible just to avoid stirring controversy. But Rees? He did the opposite. He leaned into the moment and ripped the curtain wide open. In front of a room full of stunned reporters, Rees didn't waste a second. He didn't talk about scheme, balance, or controlling the line of scrimmage. He talked about Shedeur Sanders, boldly, unfiltered, and with a confidence that had people questioning whether the quarterback depth chart was about to get flipped upside down. He described Sanders as having an absolutely insane work ethic, said the guy was consumed by film and obsessed with mastering the system. He praised his command of the playbook, talked about how Shedeur could walk into the room, break down a coverage shell, and explain every route timing against it as if he'd played in the league for 5 years. That alone would have raised eyebrows. But Reese wasn't done. He dropped the kind of coach speak that makes front offices nervous, and fans excited the rare combination of technical insight and genuine belief. Rees said that Shedeur had reached a point in his development where the game is slowing down, and if you've played or followed football seriously, you already know that's not something coaches say lightly. Because once the game slows down for a quarterback, that's when the magic starts happening. That's when a guy stops reacting and starts dictating. Starts predicting what defenses will do before they do it, recognizing blitz packages before the ball is snapped, and throwing into tight windows with absolute confidence. Reese explained it like this. When you grind the way Shedeur has, you stop seeing chaos and start seeing patterns. Think about that. He's not just hyping the kid up, he's calling him mentally elite. He's not describing talent, he's describing command, vision, total field awareness. And just like that, fans realized something Stfansky had been desperately trying to hide for months. The Browns had a potential QB1 on their bench, and they'd been wasting him the entire season. But maybe the most telling part? Rees never once checked in with Stfansky's narrative. He didn't tiptoe or hedge or say the right thing. He spoke like a man who had already made up his mind. And while Rees didn't say the word starter directly, he didn't have to, because every word he said screamed it. And as one reporter put it after the presser, that wasn't a message to the media, that was a message to the locker room. While Tommy Rees is firing up the team, building momentum, and putting his faith in a rising star, Kevin Stefanski is doing the exact opposite, doubling down on the same tired script that's been dragging the Browns into mediocrity all season long. And here's the part that has fans, analysts, and even players scratching their heads. It's almost like Stfansky refuses to acknowledge that Shedeur Sanders even exists. Week after week, press conference after press conference, Stfansky gets asked the same question, why not give Sanders a shot? And week after week, he brushes it off like it's an insult. He deflects. He downplays. He talks about the plan and staying focused, all while clinging to Dillon Gabriel like he's the next franchise savior, when, in reality, Gabriel's been playing like a guy just trying not to lose his job, and failing at that too. But this isn't just about a difference of opinion. This is personal. This is about control. Sources inside the Browns facility have hinted at growing tension between Stfansky and Rees, not over game management, not over play calling, but over quarterback decisions. Stfansky reportedly never believed in Sanders, never advocated for him. And some believe that his refusal to even consider the young QB is rooted in one thing: ego. If Shedeur Sanders succeeds on Reese's watch, it doesn't just prove Stfansky was wrong, it exposes him. It reveals that he misjudged talent, wasted precious games, and kept the team locked in a holding pattern for reasons that have nothing to do with football and everything to do with saving face. And that's exactly the narrative that's already starting to take shape. The more Rees lifts the curtain, the more Stfansky looks like a coach who's losing control of his own team, and everyone knows it. The tension isn't subtle anymore. It's written all over the field. You can see it in the body language on the sidelines, in the way veterans roll their eyes during huddles, in the tone of the answers during pressers. But the one moment that truly exposed everything, it came when a reporter asked Stfansky point-blank whether Sanders was being considered for a starting role. And Stefansky's answer was cold, flat, dismissive. He's not part of the plan. Just like that. No nuance, no explanation, no credit for the work Sanders has put in behind the scenes or the praise coming from the acting head coach just days prior. Just a complete and total brush-off, like Sanders hadn't been sharpening his sword every day waiting for his moment. For the fans? That was the breaking point. For the locker room? That was a shot fired. And for Tommy Rees? That was the green light. Because if Stfansky wasn't going to adapt, someone else was going to do it for him. For months, the locker room stayed quiet. Players answered questions with polished, media-trained responses. They avoided stirring the pot. They said the right things, even as the offense struggled, even as losses piled up, even as whispers about quarterback confusion got louder. Nobody broke the code, until Myles Garrett did. Now, if you know anything about Garrett, you know he's not the kind of player who speaks out just to make headlines. He's not a drama magnet, not a locker room distraction. He's the model pro, a generational athlete who leads with effort, silence, and impact, not Instagram posts or passive-aggressive interviews. So when he speaks, you listen. And what he said sent shockwaves through the entire organization. At a post-game presser following another lifeless Browns performance, Garrett didn't hold back. He didn't dance around the issue. He didn't try to sugarcoat the dysfunction. He looked dead into the camera and said, "I'm tired of hearing about plans. I'm tired of the excuses. We need to win." Let that sink in. That's the face of your franchise, the all-pro, the locker room anchor, the guy you build your defense around, publicly calling out the coaching staff without even using their names. And make no mistake, he was aiming straight at Stfansky. He spoke with the frustration of a man who's been dragging half a team across the finish line every single week, only to find out the other half isn't even lacing their cleats tight. Garrett has been dominating his side of the ball. He's racked up sacks, forced fumbles, pressures, you name it. He's keeping defensive stats alive while the offense stalls again and again. And now? He's done pretending everything's fine. Sources say Garrett has grown tired of the quarterback carousel, tired of the conservative play calling, tired of watching the defense burn out because the offense can't stay on the field more than 3 downs at a time. He wasn't just voicing his own frustration, he was speaking for a locker room ready to erupt. Even veteran analysts took notice, with former players like Emmanuel Acho pointing out the obvious. When someone like Myles Garrett breaks rank publicly, it means the locker room is already boiling. It's not if it explodes, it's when. And again, one name kept coming up: Shedeur Sanders. Not from Garrett directly, he's too professional for that. But the subtext was clear. It was never really about just the quarterback. It was about accountability, about change, about the team being held hostage by a coaching philosophy that refuses to evolve. And when Stfansky refused to answer those calls, the rest of the staff, the players, and even the fans started gravitating toward the one coach who was saying and doing the things they all wanted to hear: Tommy Rees. Because when your leader starts checking out, real leadership shows up fast. And right now, that leadership is preparing one quarterback and one quarterback only to change everything. If the press conferences and off-the-record whispers weren't loud enough, the truth finally hit the field, and practice in Cleveland hasn't looked the same since. Because while Kevin Stefanski continues to pretend that Dillon Gabriel is his guy, that nothing's wrong, and that sticking to the plan will somehow produce different results, Tommy Rees is over on the other field doing something else entirely. He's building a new team. A faster team. A more dangerous team. A team that runs through one player and one player only: Shedeur Sanders. Insiders say Reese has completely restructured the offensive sessions. Sanders isn't watching from the sideline anymore. He's not running scout team drills. He's not holding a clipboard or waiting to be noticed. He's getting first-team reps. Full-time. And in the NFL, that matters. That's not symbolic. That's not a gesture. That's declaring in no uncertain terms, this is the guy we're preparing to play. And it's been electric. Receivers who've been stuck in short yardage purgatory are suddenly catching 25-yard darts across the middle. Timing routes, ones that Gabriel couldn't consistently hit, are being nailed in stride. Even the veterans, guys who usually stay quiet and go through the motions during midweek practices, have started nodding their heads, slapping helmets, and reacting to throws like they know. Like they sense something's finally shifting. And behind all of it is Reese. He's coaching like a man possessed. Watching every movement, correcting footwork down to the inch, tweaking Shedeur's throwing mechanics, his release angle, his pocket presence. Not because something's broken, but because Reese knows exactly what kind of monster Shedeur can be if all the pieces lock in. We're talking about extra film sessions deep into the night, situational drills tailored for late-game heroics, live speed blitz simulations created to sharpen Sanders' reaction time. This isn't development mode. This is launch sequence preparation. And it's not just about what Sanders brings to the table physically, it's the control. His reads are faster, his decisions are cleaner. He's navigating the pocket like a pro, sliding from pressure, keeping his eyes downfield, manipulating safeties with his eyes like a 10-year vet. More than a few defenders on the Browns have reportedly said it feels like they're practicing against someone from another team, someone they can't rattle no matter what they throw at him. And Tommy Rees? He loves it. Because every successful rep, every perfect throw, every stare down in the face of pressure validates the risk he's taking. It confirms that Shedeur isn't just a talented prospect, he's the real deal. And whatever political games are going on in the front office or inside Stfansky's meeting rooms, Reese doesn't care. He's building his guy, and when the time comes, which may be very, very soon, he's going to unleash him. Kevin Stefanski had options. When the pressure started mounting, when questions about Shedeur Sanders grew louder, when the locker room's energy started to shift, he could have handled it with grace, with leadership, with honesty. But instead, he chose the excuse playbook, and it blew up in his face. When asked directly about why Shedeur Sanders hasn't seen any playing time despite the obvious signs of momentum in practice, Stfansky didn't miss a beat. He looked straight into the cameras and said something that stunned fans, confused insiders, and outright enraged several members of the team. He's not part of the plan right now. He was injured heading into pregame. We tested him. He wasn't physically ready to go. Just like that. Dismissive, cold, final. But here's the problem, it wasn't true. Not even close. Let's break it down. First of all, Shedeur Sanders had been fully active in practice all week, not limited, not rehabbing. Multiple reports confirmed he was taking full-speed reps with the first-team offense. He was executing live drills, working directly with receivers, and moving like a quarterback in mid-season form. No tape, no limp, no signs of holding back. Second, and maybe worse, Sanders himself had just gone live on a Twitch stream 48 hours earlier and made it crystal clear how he felt. I'm ready when my number gets called. No excuses, I'm healthy. I'm locked in. So, when Stfansky suddenly claimed his quarterback wasn't medically ready, fans weren't buying it. Analysts weren't buying it. And the locker room? They were furious. Because nothing divides a team faster than watching a coach undermine one of their own, especially a guy who's been outworking everyone behind the scenes. And let's call it what it is, this wasn't about injury. It was about control. It was about doubling down on a narrative, no matter the cost. Stfansky didn't want to open the door for Sanders because doing so would mean admitting he was wrong. About Gabriel. About the offense. About everything. And with Reese breathing down his neck, with fans turning, and with Sanders quickly becoming the most talked about name in Cleveland, he cracked. This was supposed to be damage control, a way to quiet the storm and point fingers somewhere else. Instead, it was gasoline on a fire already raging through the organization. Because now, the question isn't if Stefansky's on the hot seat. It's how long before everything collapses under him. And right now, the only person left holding this thing together is the one coach who refused to lie to anyone and the one quarterback finally being prepared to prove exactly why this team can't afford to wait another second. If Kevin Stefanski thought he could control the narrative, he badly underestimated one thing: the fans. Because the second that injury excuse left his mouth, the reaction wasn't just disappointment, it was an uprising. Social media lit up like wildfire. Twitter, yes, we're still calling it that. Instagram, Reddit, TikTok, every Browns feed flooded with one message: Play Shedeur Sanders. Now. There was no split opinion, no gray area, no maybe Stfansky has a point. The fan base, already leaning toward frustration, officially crossed the line into mutiny. Hashtags like #Free Shedeur, #Start Sanders, and #Revolt in Cleveland started trending regionally. NFL memes fired off by the second. Even non-Browns fans tuned in just to watch the drama unfold. ESPN, Bleacher Report, NFL Network, everyone started running with the story. And once the fans turned, it was open season. Commentators who'd been patient with Stfansky, who defended the long game, suddenly weren't pulling punches. Former players, insiders, even national analysts started calling it what it was, a leadership failure and an obvious quarterback cover-up. One sports radio show in Cleveland aired an hour-long segment titled, "If Sanders is healthy, this is coaching malpractice." Some compared it to Belichick benching Malcolm Butler in the Super Bowl, except with way fewer rings to justify it. Others said it felt like sabotage. Most were just angry that a struggling team with nothing to lose wasn't even willing to see what their most talented quarterback could do. But here's the real turning point. The locker room started echoing the fans. Not on record, of course, but behind the scenes? Loudly. Anonymous players told media outlets that Reese's practices feel like a whole different team. Others said Sanders gives us juice. One reportedly called him the first QB with real presence we've had all year. These weren't rookies looking for drama. These were veterans guys who've seen locker rooms fall apart, and they were choosing sides. And they weren't choosing Stfansky. Even more telling, videos started circulating from practice, clips of Sanders throwing 40-yard ropes, receivers celebrating like it was game day, coaches not just Reese nodding in the background. There was a different energy, and it was leaking to the public. Cleveland hadn't seen this much buzz around a quarterback since, well, maybe ever. And that's what scared Stfansky the most. Because once the city gets behind, a player once hope takes root in a franchise known for heartbreak, that momentum becomes unstoppable. Any attempt to hold it back starts to look less like strategy and more like sabotage. Right now, Shedeur Sanders isn't just a backup quarterback. He's a movement. A cause. A line in the sand drawn by fans who have had enough. And waiting silently in the center of it all is Sanders himself. Focused. Calm. Ready. Because while the fan base explodes and the franchise teeters, he's been preparing for this exact moment all along. Up until now, Shedeur Sanders had been quiet, focused, professional, working in the shadows while controversy exploded around him. He didn't hop on social media to complain. He didn't throw shade at Stfansky. He didn't even celebrate when Tommy Rees started giving him the spotlight in practice. But then came the Twitch stream. No reporters. No microphones. Just Sanders, his fans, and a camera. And what came out during that stream wasn't some scripted public relations approved soundbite. It was raw, confident, real, and it told the NFL everything it needed to know. When asked about the noise swirling around him, the controversy, the play calling, the rumors, all of it, Sanders smiled, calm, ready, and said, "I'm not just waiting to play, I'm preparing to dominate." Let that sink in. Most backups talk about staying ready, staying humble, hoping for a shot. But Shedeur? He's already mentally in the huddle, already visualizing wins, already treating this opportunity like it belongs to him. And here's the wild part. It didn't come off as arrogance. It wasn't chest-puffing or false bravado. It was the kind of quiet, heavy confidence that only comes from putting in real work behind closed doors. He talked about the hours, the film study, the rehab, the weight room, the reps with receivers after everyone else is gone, every bar, every curl route, every silent rep, leading to this moment. And his message wasn't one of frustration, it was focus. Everything I need to say, I'm saying out there in motion. That line hit different, because while Stfansky hides behind politics and Reese quietly draws up a revolution, Sanders speaks through preparation, and now fans see it. His teammates see it. The media is finally hearing it. And the whispers about if he'll get a shot have turned into white-hot anticipation for when. In truth, we've seen this before. Quarterbacks with swagger, with built-in fame, with talent. But none of them sound like Sanders right now because most of them came in trying to prove people wrong. Sanders? He's trying to prove himself right. And there's a big difference. His belief isn't reactionary. It's built. Earned reps. Built hours. Blood, sweat, silence, and now momentum. He isn't fueled by revenge, he's powered by readiness. The belief that he belongs on that field, not just because it would be a good story, but because he's the best quarterback on the roster. Period. So when Myles Garrett speaks up, when fans flood the internet, when Reese burns down the old system, Sanders doesn't need to scream. He's listening, locked in and already loading the clip. The NFL has no idea what's about to hit it. But the Browns? The Browns are starting to... This isn't just a quarterback controversy anymore. This is a war for control, a battle for identity, and more than anything, a crossroads moment for a franchise that's been lost in the wilderness for decades. The Cleveland Browns have tried everything. They've cycled through 30 quarterbacks in 20 years. They've fired coaches, changed systems, made bold trades, bottomed out, rebuilt, and bottomed out again. But right now, something feels different. Because for the first time in a very long time, there's momentum inside the madness. Not from the front office, not from standard procedures, but from a rogue assistant, an underdog QB, and a locker room that sees the truth clearer than the people in charge. Let's be clear. Tommy Rees wasn't supposed to challenge Stfansky. Shedeur Sanders wasn't supposed to be in this conversation. And fans weren't supposed to care this much about a backup quarterback midway through a collapsing season. But here we are. Reese has the team's ear. Sanders has the crowd's heart. And Stfansky? He's holding onto the steering wheel of a car that's already veering into a wall and pretending everything's fine. Now, the question is brutal in its simplicity. Will Cleveland finally press the reset button? Or will they blow it again out of pride? Because this offense doesn't need another week of Dylan Gabriel checkdowns. It doesn't need 3 more losses to realize the current system isn't working. What it needs is spark, fire, belief, and right now, all of that is bottled up inside number 5. And here's the kicker. Shedeur Sanders doesn't even need to be the future to change everything. He just needs one shot to prove that this team deserves to dream again. Not about draft picks, not about next year, but about right now. Can Sanders lead a team mid-season and pull off miracles? Nobody knows. But here's what we do know. He's ready. Tommy Rees is ready. The team is dying for change. The fan base is begging for it. And every day that goes by without that change, the pressure builds, the cracks deepen, the clock ticks louder. Rees has taken his stand. Sanders has put the work in. The Browns, whether they like it or not, are standing at the edge of something massive. One decision, one announcement, one lineup card, and the entire story shifts. Because this might not just be the start of a new quarterback. This might be the start of a new era. Whether Stfansky likes it or not, the Shedeur Sanders era isn't coming. It's already here.